Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's interview. Today, I'm sitting down with Jade Gurss. He is the author of the latest book, Racer, as well as the former PR rep for Dell Jr. Do I have that title right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know there's a lot of titles that float around, so I want to make sure I had the correct one right
I've,
there.
I've had a lot of them.
All right. I guess we'll go ahead and dive into it. I always like to kind of see how did the interviewee get their start in the sport of NASCAR or motorsports in general?
The short story is when I was 3 years old, my mom went into labor with my little sister and they couldn't find a babysitter. So I ended up going to the local half-mile dirt track with my aunt and my grandpa. I held my ears the whole time, but before the feature, I got a snow cone. So when you're three, you have slightly different priorities, and I thought that was pretty damn cool. So that sort of started me on this wacky path of just sort of being completely focused on auto racing and that. So that's sort of the real original start. As far as my first paying job, I grew up in Topeka, Kansas, and they built Heartland Park, Topeka, and worked out a deal to help televise one of the very first races there, and got to meet the management. And so near the end of the first year at Heartland Park, I was offered a position there as a PR assistant. And within about 10 days, the director of PR was, let's just say he was sent on his way. And suddenly my dream job was now being the head of PR. So it was sink or swim at that point. And, you know, I've been involved in it for 30 some years since that moment.
Awesome. So most people are probably most familiar with you through your work with Dale Jr., through Budweiser. At that time, in like the early 2000s, Dell was popping up in just everything, music videos, morning shows, just it seemed like every week there was something different. Dell was either on the cover of or appearing on. What was it like being a part of that time and just seeing like NASCAR start going into all these new places?
I mean, it was very exciting. I had actually started my own company and was under contract with Anheuser-Busch with Budweiser. So my role was to help publicize Dale Jr. and we really wanted to do new things. We didn't really want to spend too much time with what you'd call traditional NASCAR media, although we did. I mean, we certainly spent a lot of time at the track and all of that.
Yeah.
But our real goal was to expand the awareness of Dale Jr. and the Budweiser program in a much bigger sense or much bigger scale. And honestly, it got started because Budweiser was kind enough to share with me their advertising targets, their advertising spend. So at that time, trying to reach a sort of a mid-20s young male audience, they advertise in places like Rolling Stone magazine, Playboy magazine, MTV. And so that became my roadmap as far as, okay, these are the publications where we want to go after. And it kind of snowballed. Rolling Stone did a huge feature, which then the folks at MTV saw. And we worked with MTV. Dale Jr. was in a series of 5 or 6 different shows. He presented at the Music Video Awards. And we just built relationships. So, if MTV wanted a racing guy, they knew to call us. Dale Jr. was their guy.
Yeah.
The same with somebody like a Rolling Stone. We did the Playboy interview, which again, you have to consider this is 99, 2000, 2001. It was a much different media market out there.
Yeah.
So these things had a much bigger impact than they would say today.
Hmm.
The internet was up and running, but we hadn't seen a ton of the reality programming and things like that. So
Hmm.
um, so while today a Rolling Stone feature would be cool, it wouldn't have the same impact as it did then. Um, it also was interesting in that I don't know that there were thousands of fans who saw or read them, but we promoted them so much that even if they hadn't read it, um, they knew, oh, Dale Jr.'s in
Yeah.
Rolling Stone. He's our new rock and roll kind of driver. And so that's what kind of fueled it even more. It was sort of a self-feeding fire.
Yeah.
Just kept getting bigger. Sadly, when his father passed, it was a terrible time, a rough time. But that made him a more recognizable face in more general media setting,
Hmm.
and led to a lot of other opportunities. He and I worked on the book Driver Number 8,
Hmm.
and that became a huge success. Again, even if the fans hadn't read it, they certainly learned, heard a lot about it. And
Yeah.
so it was all one small piece at a time, building upon all the others. So I guess I haven't really answered your question about what it was like. It was exciting. It was something new and different day to day. And it was like, hopping on the back of a wild horse. You better hang on,
Hmm.
and you better have a good grip, because it's going to be day after day of something new, something exciting, and it was really, for me as a publicist or PR guy, it was a great time.
Yeah, that's a lot of the followers we have on our Instagram page. A lot of them will be like 18 years old or 15 years old. So I mean, they weren't even alive when Senior passed away, and
Yeah,
for them, it's crazy to imagine a world where you don't have Instagram or Facebook, because I could right now go online and I can find out anything I want to about Junior. I can find videos of him saying, "Here's my house," here's my favorite car I own. But
yeah,
I know for me growing up, like you said, if I want to know Dale Jr.'s house, I had to tune into MTV Cribs. If I
yeah,
wanted to know this new story about him, I had to pick up NASCAR Illustrated. And I know even his like you said, the Driver 8 book, um, like at the time I was not a big like reader, but I had to
yeah,
do a book report in school. And I was like, I guess I'll read this.
yeah,
I'm reading it and being like, I'm finding out so much stuff about, Dale. Because like you said, back then you had to tune into that. You had to, because it wasn't as easy to access as it is now.
yeah, yeah. And that's why I try to explain the context. Not everybody's old like me. And so it's important to me to describe some of these things in comparison to what today's world is like, of social media and all
Hmm.
that. So yeah, in some ways, the current scenario with social media, it's a lot easier in a lot of ways to connect with your favorite athletes or
Yeah.
stars or celebrities. Um, and I enjoy it because it's limited only by your imagination.
Hmm.
But it was the same way back then.
Yeah.
Um, there weren't many other race drivers capable or willing to go on um, shows like The Tonight Show with Jay
Hmm.
Leno and things like that. Dale Jr., we had the platform to do it, and
Yeah.
at that time, it meant an awful lot in the world. So, at least in our world, to do those sort of things, it was a much different time.
I guess kind of building off of that, like a little side question, um, do you think that if this was, Dale Jr.'s rookie year was 2019 instead of 1999, I mean, sorry, 2020 instead of 2000.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's easier now for like PR reps because they have so many more tools, or do you think that the market is so saturated that even with the tools, it's difficult to say, look at our driver, go buy
Yeah.
this product?
I think it's both. I think it would be exciting to work with him if he were, in the scenario he was, now
Hmm.
versus then. Um, we built the secret to good motorsports PR is you build a plan that doesn't rely upon the driver winning races. You can
Hmm.
never predict that.
Yeah.
And so you build your plan that doesn't include that. And we had done that. But Junior went out and he won in his 7th ever start at Texas, which then was one of the bigger races. I guess it still is one of the bigger
Hmm.
races. Then he won the All-Star race and run at Richmond, and it just created this sort of momentum that we were able to take advantage of. A lot of people just thought of him as Dale's son,
Yeah.
but suddenly he starts winning, and not just a fluke. He wins 3 or 4 right out of the box.
Hmm.
So I think now that would still be um, viewed as somebody young and exciting and new, and
Hmm.
luckily he had the personality that all this hoopla that we had built up, he was able to handle it,
Hmm.
and so I think he would still be considered the star if he would have been a rookie in 2000 or in 2020 and
Hmm.
had the success that he did. We never pretended that his last name didn't help us a lot.
Yeah.
If you use a racing analogy, it's like starting on the pole, but starting on the pole doesn't mean that you can sit back for 200 laps and
Hmm.
just, relax and enjoy yourself. You had to go out and push hard and go for it as much as you could, um, while recognizing, hey, we had a small head start with the fact that his last name was Earnhardt.
Hmm. So your book In the Red, it documents Junior's 2001 season. What was it like going through that season, being there? And then whenever you decided to write the book, was there anything that you looked back on that maybe you saw a little bit differently now that you were 10 years removed from it?
I don't know about differently. Certainly some elements were more memorable than others. I
Hmm.
mean, at first it was a nightmare. Losing his father was such a huge thing, and it wasn't just him losing his dad. It was his he was losing his boss, his
Hmm.
hero. Superman was gone, and so part of the book is how he handled that, and then how he sort of began to come out of that or get back to, normal is not really a word
Yeah.
that applies. It was never normal. It was always hectic, but um, how he and the team came back and started winning races again. And so for me, I don't know that anything surprised me or changed. It was rewarding to go through and put that in book form.
Hmm.
Um, and I had held off for quite a long time. Dale had decided that he just wasn't ready to do another
Yeah.
book. And, and I never pushed him. I always, every couple of years, I'd sort of politely bring it up. And finally, he encouraged me to go ahead and do it, but that it wouldn't be like Driver 8 with his name across the top. It was
Hmm.
more of a project that I did on my own. Um, but it's still very rewarding to be able to tell the story of such a tumultuous time in his life and in the life of a lot of
Hmm.
fans. It was uh, the death of Dale Earnhardt was, absolutely one of the biggest things ever in NASCAR, and so to be able to provide the story of what it was like inside that
Hmm.
tornado was very rewarding.
In addition to your work with Dale and Budweiser, you have a rich history in motorsports. For working with Ilmore to other books such as Beast, is there a project that stands out to you as your favorite?
Um, it's always a tough question, you know, which of your children is your
Yeah.
favorite? Um, I think just from as a writer, I think Beast is my best work as a writer.
Hmm.
Um, that was another one like In the Red that I had wanted to do for years and years, and so it was rewarding to finally be able to tell that story. And it's a story that took, you know, dozens of interviews and a lot of research, and I spent time in England talking with a lot of the key people, and so I'm biased. The experience itself was very um, rewarding for
Hmm.
me. Um, Before anything, I'm a fan, so this was a story that I knew some of the big chunks of it, but I, as a fan, I wanted to learn more. You know, how
Yeah.
did you do this? Why did this happen? And I think that's helped all of my books. Is I'm curious as a race fan. I ask the questions that I want to know, and I hope people enjoy that. Or that book seems to have resonated. You know, the word of mouth was great. Um, the John Andretti book, Racer, which came out in September, was very rewarding. Um, you know, I'm always in the back of my mind, no matter what I'm doing, you know, looking for that next great story.
Hmm.
Um, and I had known John a little bit. We weren't close friends, but um, it just struck me one day that, oh my God, you know, here's this guy fighting cancer, and he's such a great storyteller, and he's such a wonderful human being that I need to do this. I need to
Hmm.
tell his story. And he was very open to it. And his first response was that, you know, I said, would you be interested in telling your story, doing a book? And he said, oh, you know, maybe something good could come of this, meaning his illness.
Hmm.
You know, he was so focused on making sure that no others went through what he and his family did
Hmm.
uh, by not getting a colonoscopy at, you know, at the recommended time. So so that was rewarding to me as far as working with John. You know, sadly, in his final months, um, he passed when we were about 85 or 90% through the book. So finishing it and editing and all of that was very emotional, very
Hmm.
tough. So so I'm proud of that for that reason, and to sort of put in a good word for my current project. I'm working with Al Unser Jr. on his life story.
Hmm.
And, you know, a lot of people know Al as an IndyCar champion, Indy 500, multiple winner. Um, but behind all that was a really terrible secret of drug and alcohol abuse that was hidden for many years. And it's been very rewarding as well. We're probably about 2/3 of the way through the book, and boy, talk about emotional and about someone being very open and honest about
Hmm.
their life, both the good and bad. Um, it's been another project that has very deep emotional resonance, and I hope people will enjoy it and learn a lot from it as well, because it veers from some of the greatest racing stories I've ever heard
Hmm.
to some of the most just shocking stories of drug abuse, and it's going to whip you from the highs of winning the Indy 500 to
Hmm.
the very lows of, you know, someone that was struggling terribly in their personal life. So I don't even remember what your first question, what the original question was. I just started rambling, but I think each book that I've done has had um, some sort of story beyond just, okay, here's the race I won and here's how it happened. Um, I did a book with Darrell Waltrip where he
Yeah.
basically told his life story and how fascinating it was. So um, I love writing books, but I'm at a point where I can pick and choose my subjects. I don't have to choose a project just because, I need to put food on the
Yeah.
table. And so that's something that I appreciate, or something that has been lucky for me, that I've been lucky enough to be able to pick and choose the
Mhm.
best people and the best stories. So.
I guess finally, building on that, when I think of you, and even just doing the research for this, what just kept coming up was storyteller. So do you have a favorite story of yours that you'd like to end this interview on?
Wow, a favorite. Well, I mean, you're talking to somebody that's been at it for 3 decades. Um, the Dale Jr. era was, like I said, it was organized chaos. There was
Mhm.
so much happening from the very first to the
Yeah.
to the end. I was with him through his entire Budweiser era, to basically to his final race in
Mhm.
the number 8 car. Um, and it was like each week was a new story. I also have a background in music, so for me, the MTV stuff was amazing. I mentioned earlier he was a presenter on the MTV Music Awards, or Music Video Awards,
Mhm.
and I got to go with him. And so for me, a music geek, and he is as well, to be able to be sitting between Jessica Simpson and Mandy Moore and Aerosmith and uh, No Doubt across the aisle, sharing a flask of God knows what. Um, that was heady stuff. That was stuff that was out of our sort of comfort zone, or out
Mhm.
of our little world. So I'd say that night was pretty memorable. Although we did leave a little early, and we missed Michael Jackson and we missed Britney Spears dancing with a snake. So we
Oh,
probably
yeah.
could have stayed a little longer, but he had to be at the racetrack the next morning. So
Mhm.
I understood why we had to leave. So I don't know. That's not a very good story. That's more just my personal favorite. But I could go year by year
Yeah.
and talk about all the fun and crazy things. And Driver 8 and In the Red tell a lot of those stories for the first couple of years, when it was
Mhm.
all new and fresh, and he's the next big thing. And so that's what made those books fun, I think, was that they kind of told the story of
Yeah.
what he was going through and what we were seeing and doing each week. So if a fan is interested, I recommend they can pick up either or,
Mhm.
to really learn what it was like being the next big thing there for a couple of years.
That sounds good. I really appreciate you joining me today. If people want to learn more about you, or learn more about the books that you've written or are coming up, where can they find you online at?
I'm all over social media. My main focus is Twitter.
Hmm.
Tons of interaction. I sometimes, like the Daytona 24, I basically sat on my butt for
Yeah.
20 some hours commenting on the race and chatting with fans. I love that. And my Twitter handle is at Jade Gurss. I'm also on Instagram at that same name. Um, and then as far as the books, the easiest place to sort of find all of them is just search my name on Amazon, or search one of the book titles, and you can click on my name, and it'll give you a little bio and a rundown of all the different books. So that's probably the easiest way to initially find out more about me. And like I say, I'm on Twitter a lot. I interact a lot. I'll answer any question anytime. So reach out to me there, and I'm happy to reply.